Welcome to this presentation on diamond mines in the Canadian North. As with all resource development, diamond mining has effects on the environment and on the people who live in the area. Regulations in Canada require environmental assessments to be conducted prior to commencement of some activities, such as large mining operations. Once in production, some companies continue to conduct research and monitoring of the environmental effects as a continuation of the environmental assessment process. Although resource development often causes harm to the environment, some effects may prove to be neutral or beneficial. This presentation takes a look at the diamond mining industry in the Northwest Territories, beginning with a brief overview of the geology regarding diamond formation and where they are found in northern Canada, followed by a short history of the Aquatic and Diavik mines. Then it will look at some of the research into the effects of diamond mining on water quality, the potential for carbon capture and sequestration, and how the mines affect the human communities in the region. Preparing this presentation is the third time I've looked into diamond mining in Canada. The first time was in 2019 when I was taking a geology course on our physical resources, and one of the assignments was a project on the geological occurrence, mining, and processing of one of those resources. I had just found out during that course that Canada was a diamond producer, so I chose diamonds as my topic for that project. The second time I studied this was in 2021, when I was taking a geography course on the Canadian North. For that course, I did my term paper on diamond mining in the Northwest Territories. The course focus was a little different from the geology course. For this one, I was investigating the environmental and social issues connected to the diamond industry. Then I joined the Calgary Rock and Lapidary Club in the summer of 2021, and then in the spring of 2022 I found out that I could volunteer to give a presentation to the club. So I asked if the club would be interested in a talk based on my geography term paper, and my offer was accepted. So be prepared, this presentation is full of maps. In 2019, Canada was the world's third largest producer of diamonds. It produced 2.5% by value of the total world production and 13.5% by volume. For 2019, Canada exported a total of $2.21 billion in diamonds. Canada's diamond mines are concentrated in the Arctic, mainly in the Northeast-Northwest Territories. In 2019, they produced 18.6 million carats of rough diamonds valued at $2.25 billion. This map shows the locations of Canada's diamond mines. There is an advanced project in Saskatchewan and two past producers in the Northwest Territories and Nunavut, and there are also mines in Ontario and Quebec. Only about 20% of the world's diamonds by weight are used for making jewelry. The other 80% is known as bort and is used in industrial and research applications. All commercially mined diamonds are believed to have formed in zones of diamond stability deep in the mantle under high pressures and temperatures, about 150 kilometers or more below Earth's surface. Then deep source volcanic eruptions carried some of the diamonds to the surface. The cooled lava in the throats of the volcanoes forms a carrot-shaped deposit called a kimberlite pipe. In the Canadian Arctic, the surface crater of these volcanoes has been eroded away by glaciers, often forming small lakes. Any diamonds in the eroded part of the pipe become part of sedimentary placer deposits elsewhere along streams and coastlines. The majority of Canada's kimberlite pipes are found in a region of the Canadian Precambrian Shield called the Slave Craton. This region of the continental plate is believed to have remained geologically stable for 2.5 to 4 billion years. The older crustal rocks in this region, consisting mostly of granites and gneisses with younger volcanic and metasedimentary rocks on top of them, have been exposed at the surface by glaciation. The craton sits above a keel, a portion of the lithosphere that protrudes deeper into the mantle, where there is a diamond stability zone. This slide shows a cross-section of the Slave Craton. The purple section in the middle is believed to be older than the yellow section. It shows some little diamond shapes in the keel below Lac de Gras. The yellow section is a younger slab that has been thrust underneath, and some of the carbon in it has been converted to diamonds by the high pressures and temperatures. In most cases, the kimberlite pipes do not contain enough diamonds to justify commercial development. However, when the quantity and quality of diamonds are adequate for profitable mining, open pit and underground mines may be developed. This map shows the location of known kimberlite pipes, but only a few of them are being mined for diamonds. Diamonds are not the only crystals associated with kimberlite pipes. Brightly colored chrome diopsides and garnets are used as indicator minerals by diamond prospectors. In the 1980s, Chuck Fipke and Stuart Blusson tracked the trail of eroded indicators along the path of westward migrating glaciers, finally staking mineral claims in the Lac de Gras area in 1989. A joint venture agreement was signed with BHP Diamonds, Inc. in August 1990, and the first diamonds were discovered near Point Lake the following year. The discovery instigated a massive diamond rush. The joint venture team staked a claim on 344,000 hectares and discovered the Fox, Panda, Misery, and Koala diamond-bearing pipes in 1992 to 1993. The Koala North Pipe was discovered in 1998. Many other kimberlite pipes have been outlined on the property, but most of them have no commercial value. Various feasibility and environmental assessments for the proposed project took place from 1994 to 1996 to provide detailed information for the government and local communities. And in January 1997, the necessary permits were granted. Construction began that spring, and diamond production began a year and a half after that. The claim block surrounding the Diavik mine was staked during the diamond rush in 1991 and 1992, and its kimberlite potential was assessed in 1992 and 1993. Diavik Diamond Mines, Inc. was formed to manage the project in 1996, and various feasibility environmental studies were conducted during 1997 and 1998 to provide the government and local communities with detailed information about the planned development, the same as for Aquatic. The company received the necessary permits in 2000, and construction began in 2001 and production in 2003. The plan included construction of specialized rock dikes to surround the open pits because all of the pipes were under the waters of Lac de Gras. Fish trapped inside the dikes were to be returned to the lake, as well as water after it had been treated. This is a picture of the Diavik mine from a little different angle, and it looks a little surreal how the holes just seem to go straight down into the lake. The scale of the project required that building materials, machinery, heavy equipment, and supplies would need to be brought to the mine site over a period of many years. The region's terrain is impassable for large vehicles for much of the year, so air transport is often the only option to move people and supplies. However, the volume and heavy weight of material needed at the mine site made this method of transport impractical and uneconomic. so construction supplies had to be trucked in over a winter ice road stretching from just north of Yellowknife to Contwoito Lake. This was the longest heavy haul ice road in the world. It was approximately 600 kilometers long, and 85% of it runs over frozen lakes. It has to be rebuilt every year between November and January and is only open for traffic for about 8 weeks. The Indigenous peoples of northern Canada place a high value on their traditional ties to the land. Starting in 1992, public meetings were initiated to inform residents of the plans for the Aquatic diamond mine and invite local input on the development of the project. Concerns that were raised in these meetings included maintenance of water quality, safeguarding of the Bathurst caribou herd, and ensuring that the project would avoid causing permanent damage to the land. As part of the environmental assessment, the proponents of the Aquatic mine incorporated traditional knowledge from Indigenous groups in developing an environmental management plan based on pollution prevention. The project plan put focus on the safe and permanent storage of process plant tailings, control and disposal of domestic and other waste, and construction and operation that minimize surface disturbance. They also included a plan for site reclamation and abandonment. A similar assessment process was followed for the Diavik mine. The company maintains a socio-economic monitoring agreement with the territorial government, as well as environmental protection agreements with Indigenous communities and the federal and territorial governments. Regular consultation with Indigenous peoples has resulted in revision of the mine's operation and closure plans over time, and this is expected to continue. The company also put agreements in place to ensure that local Indigenous communities received benefits from the mine, including job training, mine employment, and opportunities for local businesses to provide the necessary services. In incorporating traditional knowledge into the plans for Diavik, the company is advised by the Traditional Knowledge Panel. One of the topics of discussion with the panel involved how far to go in regard to revegetating the land once the mining operation closes. Some members believed the land would heal itself. However, most of the panel members understood that mining operations create extensive damage in comparison to natural events, and therefore it would require a more aggressive approach to reclamation. Diamond mines in the Northwest Territories conduct aquatic effects monitoring programs as part of ongoing environmental assessments. These programs allow detection of the effects on downstream water bodies of the mining process and waste deposition. In relation to the Aquatic mine, data is collected on water quality and zooplankton communities, as well as various other parameters. The effluent from Kimberlite processing is released into the Long Lake Containment Facility. After treatment, it flows through a chain of lakes, including Leslie Lake, Moose Lake, Nema Lake, and Slipper Lake. These lakes are sampled regularly as part of the monitoring program. 2 further sampling sites are located in the northwest arm of Lac de Gras. Reference samples are also taken from 3 upstream lakes that do not receive mine effluent: Vulture Lake, Nanook Lake, and Counts Lake. In many parts of North America, lakes have experienced a decline in calcium concentrations. This has resulted in changes in zooplankton communities due to the differences in sensitivity to dissolved calcium between species. One example is where species of Daphnia, which have a calcified shell, have decreased in regions where calcium concentrations have fallen below 1.5 milligrams per liter. At many of these sites, Daphnia species are being replaced by Holopedium glacialis, a crustacean with a jelly coating rather than a calcified carapace. Both genera of crustacean are filter feeders, with Daphnia generally being more efficient grazers. In other words, Daphnia eat more algae. At low calcium sites where pH is below 8, Holopedium tend to outcompete some Daphnia species and become more dominant. In some lakes, such as acidified lakes in eastern Canada and the United States, reduced Daphnia populations can result in algal blooms turning clear water green. An added problem in these situations is that Holopedium are less nutritious and are often too big for some organisms to eat, resulting in a lack of quality food for fish. They also have the potential to clog water intake valves that draw municipal water supplies from the lakes they inhabit. In contrast, the lakes receiving calcium-rich effluent from the Aquatic mine are experiencing the opposite trend. Holopedium are being replaced by Daphnia due to the increase in calcium concentration and pH. It is believed that these changes in water chemistry may be stressing the Holopedium, resulting in increased mortality and decreased reproduction. It is unclear how the changes in zooplankton communities downstream of Aquatic will affect nutrient transfer throughout the food web. Daphnia generally contain more phosphorus than Holopedium, and there are also differences in their composition of polyunsaturated fatty acids. Assessment of these effects requires continued monitoring of fish and invertebrate predators. It is widely believed that increasing amounts of anthropogenic carbon dioxide in Earth's atmosphere are driving global climate change. Because of the predicted catastrophic impacts of this climate change, there is a focus on finding ways to reduce carbon emissions, especially from industrial sources such as mining operations. Due to the chemical composition of the Kimberlite tailings from diamond mines, it is believed that it may be possible to use them to sequester carbon dioxide through mineral carbonation. Only a few studies have been conducted on this topic, and they have focused on mining operations in northern Canada. These have included mineralogical, stable isotope, and radiocarbon studies at Diavik, and hydrogeochemical modeling at Aquatic. Ultramafic and mafic serpentine minerals, olivine, brucite, and smectite in the tailings are of particular interest for carbonation. It is expected that these minerals can sequester atmospheric carbon dioxide by forming secondary carbonate minerals, either through in situ natural alteration of kimberlite pipes or accelerated carbonation rates in processed kimberlite. Investigations at Diavik showed that carbonation of processed kimberlite occurs at a rate 2 orders of magnitude faster than natural rates, measured in Arctic and subarctic river catchments, even when conditions are unfavorable, such as with storage underwater in a cold climate. As a result, De Beers estimates that carbonation of an average of 13.8% of weight of its annual kimberlite production could offset 100% of each mine's carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, and accelerated carbonation of annual kimberlite tailings could potentially offset up to 10 times the mine's emissions. De Beers conducted a study called Project Minera to develop a mineral carbonation process which could be implemented at diamond mines. The process begins with assessing the mine's carbon emissions, which are primarily sourced from electricity production and vehicles. Then any natural carbon storage in mine tailings is identified, and an assessment is made of total carbon storage capacity and the best technologies to facilitate storage. Some options to increase carbon storage include CO2 injection, increasing the flow of atmospheric CO2, and using microbes to increase reaction rates. Carbon storage is then monitored over time, and finally the tailings can be reclaimed as usual by covering them with soil and vegetation. The Northwest Territories is unique from the rest of Canada in a number of ways. For one, its population is mostly Indigenous, almost half of which are under 20 years old and very few over 65. The population is growing faster than the economy, resulting in a higher unemployment rate than the rest of Canada. Due to the high cost of living, people not employed in above-average paying jobs must often rely on country foods such as fish, caribou, wild berries, and plants to meet their household needs. The economy is split between a traditional economy based on hunting, fishing, and gathering, and a wage economy based on resource development, government, and the service industry, with the government being the largest employer. Private investment in the Northwest Territories is increasingly important. Mining provides a substantial portion of the Northwest Territories' revenue. While the Indigenous communities around the Northwest Territories diamond mines want to maintain their traditional way of life and their ties to the land, they also recognize the value of the wage-based economy to enable them to afford vehicles, rifles, food, and clothing to supplement their traditional lifestyle. Elders in the communities have also been concerned for the younger people to gain better education, employment, job skills, and training for modern industry, while maintaining their culture. To accommodate the traditional culture of the Indigenous people who would be working at the Aquatic diamond mine, the project plan included a 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off work schedule, so they could still pursue traditional activities. Because a permanent road would attract an influx of new settlements, which would further impact the environment, it was decided to maintain a fly-in camp rather than build a road. The mining plans also included a commitment to preferential hiring for Indigenous people, relaxation of minimum educational requirements for hiring, on-site training, and preference to Indigenous businesses that would be providing services. There was also provision for scholarship programs for Indigenous students. Unfortunately, in practice, it has been noticed that mine workers are spending less time on the land. This results in traditional skills and ecological knowledge not being passed on to younger generations. Some other cultural activities have been cancelled due to a lack of drummers, many of whom were denied cultural leave from their jobs at the mines. The wage economy is also driving the cultural orientation towards individualism and away from more community-based Indigenous values and collective responsibility. This can also affect extended families and communities in terms of social support in raising children. One of the socio-economic impacts of the diamond mining industry is that higher incomes often lead to increased social problems, such as drug and alcohol abuse. Since the diamond mines opened, it has been observed that jobs in mines create significant mental stress, anxiety, and exhaustion. This also has led to increased rates of substance abuse, gambling, prostitution, sexually transmitted diseases and other health effects, child neglect, and family conflict. There are also observed trends of increasing violent crime in Yellowknife. However, it is difficult to determine whether many of these changes can be directly linked to diamond mining. Solutions to these problems require the participation of the affected community. The plan for the Aquatic diamond mine included providing assistance to communities in building on their own strengths to solve social problems. In conclusion, the discovery of diamonds in the Northeast-Northwest Territories created an economic boom in the region as huge mining megaprojects were initiated. Each mining development required years of extensive environmental and socio-economic assessment before the granting of government permits. Project plans have integrated traditional knowledge from the local Indigenous communities, as well as implementing ongoing environmental monitoring studies. Some of these studies may have implications that can be applied elsewhere. As for the human population, the mines have brought both problems and benefits.